The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the David Pakman Show. You have probably heard by now that in the case where George Zimmerman stood accused of potentially second-degree murder, potentially manslaughter in the killing of Trayvon Martin that he claimed was in self-defense, George Zimmerman has been found not guilty.
In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in and for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus George Zimmerman. Verdict, we the jury find George Zimmerman not guilty.
Lewis, initial reactions to the verdict?
Well, I guess it's kind of what we predicted, talking amongst ourselves about it. I think it's unfortunate, but when you have people testifying on both sides, testifying to opposite facts, opposite details, the jury is not supposed to lean one way or the other based on how they feel, so they're really left with no choice but to call this an unfortunate accident.
There is absolutely no surprise in my mind that this went in the direction of not guilty. All along last week, I was getting a ton of email about it. I was saying, I think that the state is doing the best case they can given the evidence. I pointed out a couple of areas where they may have been able to do a little better, but there was simply not the type of evidence you need to prove second-degree murder or even really manslaughter in this particular case. And I want to be very clear here. I have an opinion of what happened on that night. My opinion has been the same the entire time, which is that George Zimmerman, in part because of Trayvon Martin's race, decided to track and follow Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman made the initial confrontation, which eventually led to the shooting of Trayvon Martin. In between, it's certainly possible that there was a fight in which Trayvon Martin certainly did not just lay there limp. He attempted to make contact with George Zimmerman, presumably to defend himself. And that the bottom line is that the story about exactly who was on top and the number of times George Zimmerman was hit, none of it added up. That is my belief about what happened, colloquially speaking, call it by the spirit of the law. At the same time, we have a situation where by the letter of the law, you have to prove that George Zimmerman, in order to get a second-degree murder conviction, did not reasonably fear for his life or serious bodily injury. It's very difficult to prove a negative. The way these statutes are written makes this incredibly difficult, and I am not even remotely surprised about this verdict whatsoever. However, this is the key thing. The verdict does not mean that George Zimmerman is innocent. All the verdict means is that based on the evidence that was legally admissible within the judicial system, the bar for second-degree murder or manslaughter was not met. It is simply an evaluation of facts. It says nothing about gun ownership in society. It says nothing about George Zimmerman and his future actions in terms of being a vigilante or not. It says nothing about anything, broadly speaking, particularly about conservative values, which I'll talk about in a second. All it is an evaluation of the evidence in this particular case and whether a certain burden has been met. And that is all, Lewis. It is nothing more than that.
Right. And, who knows what will happen now? There may be a civil case. I don't think this is going to end for a very long time. And I guarantee you, George Zimmerman will have to watch his back for the rest of his life because of the countless people that are so angry at him.
No question about it.